Okay.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
All right. Well, hi, everyone. Thank you for coming to this COTAD event. Hopefully people will watch the recording later. As we approach the, sorry, Rachel. As we approach the end of Disability Awareness Month, we wanted to highlight an important voice in the disability community that will help us as practitioners gain perspective and learn how to best advocate for people with disabilities. We were so excited to host this guest speaker, Julia Hahnke. A little bit about Julie. Sorry, I said Julia again. Julie.
That's why
She's
my
an
mother calls
author.
me
I
that.
don't know why I just say it. She's an author. She has lots of experience working in technology, marketing, and business management. She is a competitive bagpiper, which is really cool, a disability advocate, and a stroke survivor. So, which I'm sure she'll tell us more about. In addition to her experience creating a charity called Cecropia Strong. So, Julie is going to give her presentation, and then we'll have about 10 to 15 minutes for Q&A. So if we could just hold our questions to the end of Julie's presentation, that would be great. So without further ado, Julie, take it away.
I'm going to screen share. So give me a second, I'll get that started. And slideshow. Okay. And let me get the electric pointer, laser pointer. Yeah, there. Okay. I'm Julie Hahnke, and I'm your, hang on, let me, yeah. No videos, nope. No, okay. Playing with the videos. My videos are way over on the right, and I want to look at you, but I got to watch what I'm doing. So that's, yeah. Yeah, so I'm going to talk to you today about what I've been through and how I founded Cecropia Strong and what we stand for. And who I am is kind of a mix between what I was before the stroke and what I am now, and the various groups that have helped me get to where I am. So I'll just, give a quick point out on this slide. The group here is graduating in 2020. They were the second year cohorts in the spring of 2019, OT. They were OT cohorts. And this is funny because they actually wanted to see me dress in my piping outfit. I had complained that it took me an hour and a half to get dressed with my piping gear on, and they couldn't understand why. And so they, as a challenge for me, gave me the task of bringing my gear in to the IPC and putting it on. I had 1 hour, and they timed it, and I thought they were going to help me. All these guys were, watching, and they just went, staring at me as each thing went on, and they were like, wow. And it was like not much help, but they came up with a couple of areas where I could speed it up a little. It was fun. The guys over here are PT cohorts, and I think they're in their third year. This was taken about 3 weeks ago in Two Constitution Wharf, also at the IPC. And that is Kate and Stephanie, I believe, third year cohort. And that's Jen, our PT, senior PT, and me. And these are piping pictures. I pipe for, each year I play for the 9/11 service, and that's what we're remembering here. Yeah, okay, so, and I was a piper. Oh, back behind the ship, you can see the IPC. And if you can look hard, I don't think you really can, but You can see you guys waving. Okay, this is, I piped for the Constitution for about 13 or 14 years. And this is the Lieutenant Bush breakfast, which signifies the first officer killed in the line of duty. And he was on board the Constitution, and he died in the War of 1812. So, all right. Yeah, now we get to my stroke. It wasn't really fun. I was in Mass General for 5 days in the ICU, and then I went to Spalding for 5 weeks. Then I went to a lesser nursing facility for about 5 weeks. And then I went home. My parents came up from Florida to stay with me for a couple of weeks. And about 3 weeks after they left, I got a determination service in the mail. It's a big, thick packet of paper we have to fill out, and that will determine disability benefits. And I'm looking at this thing that's 8 pages long, and I have to fill it out. And I'm sitting there trying to fill it out with my left hand. I'm writing with my left hand. Can anybody write with your left hand if you're not left-handed? And it was bad. And I was working on it when my speech pathologist came to the house to give me therapy, I guess. And she saw it wasn't pretty. And so she started scribing, and this was a couple pages from it. The red box, this red box here, is sections I've done myself, and you can't really read them, or you can, but not very easily. The green sections are things that she scribed. And this is just such a mess because I was trying to fit things in and up and down and all this, and I won't even try and read that. But I'm going to read the section on meals. I wanted to include this because I really, wanted you to get a sense of how I felt living alone. And, it was, yeah. Do you often prepare your own meals? Yes. If yes, what kind of food do you prepare? I've only been preparing my meals for 3 weeks. I'm still figuring out which foods work well and which foods don't. How often do you prepare your food or meals? Some each day, or clean up. Fixing mistakes many times the amount of work that it is for an able-bodied person. How long does it take you? Way too long. And any changes in cooking habits, the illness began. Yes, to find a faster way for a single person to survive. And I think that really sums up how I felt with all the things that I had to deal with all of a sudden, with absolutely, a body that wasn't working right. So, yeah, the speech therapists have these cue cards, and I mean, it's a technique that it helps you learn what stuff you need to remember. And I found with my aphasia, I couldn't remember the 3 and 4 syllable words. Those were the hardest. And also the medical jargon. And, I would be in conversations and I would go, for multiple times as I, was faced, I was trying to say all these things, and it became crazy to have a conversation because I really only used 1 and 2 syllable words because I couldn't remember the 3 and 4 syllable ones. And, this gives it just a shot. Consultant is a 3 syllable word. Atrial fibrillation is a medical term. That's what caused my stroke. And Charlestown is, it's funny, I knew it as Bunker Hill and the piping for the Constitution, but it's also rehab, and that's where you guys are located, and aphasia. Yeah, and the affects people's opinions of me, and it's a negative effect of people's opinions, and that kind of says it all, doesn't it? Okay, I think this is an important part. These are the stroke studies I've been in, and I'm mentioning these because the studies, I think, have done more for my progress over time than anything else. And unfortunately, I don't remember a lot of the Frenny studies. That was late 17 and early 18. And I never met Frenny himself. He had a lot of PhD students and PTs and OTs working for him. And they basically ran the routines for me. In June of 18, I went to Teresa Kimberly because I was interested in the vagus nerve stimulation. I thought, the vagus nerve would be, it's a wonderful nerve. Excuse me. It regulates the autonomic nervous systems of all the organs in the core center of the body. And it actually, it gives control, gives them a sense of control. It monitors it's like a safety device. It monitors, it puts them in good operating function. And the vagus nerve stimulation was Teresa's study, and she sat with me and spoke for a few minutes, and she needed 20 points in the Fugelmeyer. Are you guys familiar with the Fugelmeyer assessment? Okay, it's 20 points of 66 would be an able-bodied person has 66 of the upper body, and her study required 20 points out of 66 to get in. And when I went to see her, I wasn't at 20. I wasn't nearly 20. I was about 16. And so, she said, well, that's nice, but sorry, you're not 20. Therefore, have a nice life. And she said, however, Sue Fazoli runs a robot-assisted therapy that you might be able to get into. And I didn't know who Sue Fazoli was, but you guys knew because she is one of your faculty members. And so she gave me Sue's number, and I called Sue. And Sue was going off, I think in July, on vacation. And I then took July and I scheduled, I think, six sessions in July and early August with an OT from some other place, but one that would give me electrical stimulation in my hand and wrist to try and kickstart some of the nerves, or at least get some of them functioning better. And when I went to see Sue that August, she worked my hands and stuff and my arm and all. And she said, and it was really funny because I think she probably had a cutoff for her study too, that was around 20. And she said, you know, I'll let you join the study, but you know, you'll have to see Christine here, and she's going to test you. But you tell Christine you can come in even if it doesn't quite make the range. And and she took me in, and you know, I'm very grateful. So yeah, so that was the robot assisted study, and we went into October. So I was 16 in August, and by the end of October, I was 21, and that of Fugelmeyer, and that really made the difference. And that was good enough for me to then go to Teresa and say, hey, you know, I've got a 21 on the Fugelmeyer. Would you consider me now? And she said, yes, we will. And so, yeah, so one became another and the next. So the vagus nerve stimulator, the vagus nerve has a certain number of fibers that go to the brain and give the brain information gathered from the body. And from what she does with the study is she physically implants. So I've got a device, you can't really see it, just right there, that's like a pacemaker. And it's a pacemaker that feeds not the heart, but it feeds the vagus nerve in my neck. And there are little electrodes, and I see that magnet. I swipe with a magnet, and that tells my stimulator to be active for a half an hour, and I then go into therapy session to try and augment my upper body, my arm, my hands, the elbow, the shoulder, all of that. And it's, yeah, and it makes a big difference over time. Right. And so that was a year. That was more like a year and a half. Technically, the study was over in a year, but they had something for the control group. I was in the control group, and we then went to June of 2020. Yeah. So, and then the gripper glove was Harvard gripper glove was that was a soft robotic glove that closed your hand, and then it would release and you would open it. And so with that, with that glove on, I would do my therapy for an hour or so, and I would close and open maybe 250 times each day for a month. And that was tremendous. And I found out afterwards, home use was the next study they were doing with the gripper glove. And so I signed up for that as well. And we did the home use in April, May, just a couple months ago. And now I'm looking for my next study. And Connor also has a robotic exosuit gait training. And so I haven't I haven't gotten in touch with his contact, but yeah, yeah. So I don't know what'll happen there. So I wanted to toss out one thing for you guys to think about, and that's the history of stroke survivors when you're working with stroke patients. If your date of the stroke, okay, so with the stroke, you suffer the damage immediately. And then over time, we show that the more treatment, more OT, PT, SLP, doctor care, et cetera, the patient responds to, the better the results. So it goes, I show the stroke patient as recovering all through this. And if it's Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis, Alzheimer's, ALS, from wherever it's first diagnosed, that becomes a degenerative process, and that they cycle downward. But when you're an OT and you see someone with a stroke, um, you don't have the whole view of what it was like for them in the beginning, and well, afterwards, no one knows, right? But this period of time isn't really known to you usually. So I'm wondering, what can we do to capture that? And Lisa Connor and Lisa is one of my board of directors. She was the head of OT from, I'm not sure when she started at Spalding, but she left in 2019. And so we had a year or two of some working together. I as a stroke survivor, and she is the OT. And actually, Sue Fazoli introduced me to Lisa. And Lisa's on the board of directors for Cecropia Strong. And we were talking the other day about if we could if we could capture video moments of a stroke survivor's recovery, that would be something we could then look at, or the stroke survivor would have that as a telling, a narrative of the stroke experience. If you don't do the video, you could use measures. Boy, this is a lot harder than I thought it would be. It's fine when I'm practicing because I can go off on all tangents, but it's harder to speak in person. Yeah. If you have measures like the Fugl-Meyer is a measure, if you show the progression through time of the patient's measures, that also can tell you something about what their efforts are and how much they're working on it. And I can basically, maybe 1 year out was 2018 February, and then maybe a year and a half was August 2018. So I had a 16 a year and a half out, and that went up to 21 by the time that Sue Fazoli finished, and that's when Teresa started. And I've just been maybe 18 months after that, and I had Fugl-Meyer just last week, actually, 38. So it shows you the progression, and it tells you something about the movement and what can be expected. So that's another possibility. A dynamometer would be another measurement that would be very specific for grip strength. But again, you have that in your toolkit. So I'm not sure what you can do, but I think we need a better history for each person of what their progress is. Okay, so that is good. Now I'm going to, now it's Cecropia Strong. Okay, this part is really good because this is written down. So I'm going to look at this, and yeah, hope is key to a key part to all of this. When you get whacked with a disabling illness like a stroke, you come out of it so upside down. Your brain is in shock and you're grasping around. And those around you give you hope until you can figure it out for yourself. As I was recovering in Spalding 4 years ago, I felt like the Cecropia moth emerging from my cocoon. I didn't know one end was up. And that became the first word of our charity, Cecropia. The second word was borrowed from Boston Strong, which was formed during the aftermath of the bombing at the Boston Marathon. And so we have Cecropia Strong. We have 4 milestones that we constantly measure ourselves by, and these are spelled out in our charter and our bylaws. Can't you guys see the difference? This is something, this is aphasia. Like, actually, it's pretty good aphasia, but still, it's aphasia. And reading from this, well, the first part was really painful. Anyway, these are our bylaws spelled out in our charter. The first is to help those newly disabled because they don't know which end is up. And when I was at Spalding, I really couldn't talk. I couldn't do much. And one afternoon I was being wheeled back to my room and I saw a guy by the elevator with armloads of huge teddy bears. I mean, 2-foot teddy bears. I went nuts and I was pointing and I had a lot of sounds. And he looked at me and he said, "Do you want a teddy bear?" And I said, "Yeah." And he gave me this wonderful 2-foot bear, and that's on my dresser in my bedroom. And it has been there since I got home 4.5 years ago. And now I'm the guy with the teddy bears, right? So I'm going and I'm saying to people, here are gifts of care that you can have, and will help you when you get strong enough to ask. So I am going to give that screen there. This is Stacy Z. She is a PT extraordinaire, and she's now the head of PT on the stroke floor and the brain recovery floor, neural recovery. And that, yeah, at Spalding Rehab Hospital. So these are our gifts. These are 4 months of gifts that were given, and they collected them, and then they gave one giant give to all the patients at the rehab just a couple weeks ago. And these pictures, this picture and this picture, were taken on that day. And this is my cat Baloo, and she's telling people that 8 gifts aren't enough at Christmas, and so people gave more, and I think we ended up with 15 gifts at Christmas time, and now we're really doing 15. Yeah. So we started on July last year giving, and people were buying a compassionate gift from my website, and I would take the gifts down to Spalding. When we started the Cecropia Strong, it made perfect sense for this to become one of our milestones. So we're now giving over 10% of Spalding Rehab's patients gifts each month. Okay. And now Sue Fazoli asked me, it was about a year later in the fall, going into the fall of 2019, if I would participate in an assistive technology course at MIT. You guys know what assistive technology is? Yeah. Assistive technology brings functional capacity to disabled people if they don't have it themselves. So, and I immediately saw the benefit of these classes. They were certainly good for the kids, but they were huge for the disabled people, because here are these bright college kids that are willing to bring their tools to bear for problems that you might have. And so, we wanted to reach the disabled populations and tell them about assistive technology and what it could do for them, right? So the second milestone of our charity is to partner with the 6 colleges and universities in the Boston area that teach assistive technology in their programs. MIT, and I've done a couple of things at MIT. Tufts, and Jen Buxton is a Tufts OT professor, and she's also on the board of our directors. Sargent College at BU, Northeastern, and Olin School of Engineering, small school, but very, very, good, and UMass Lowell. And they teach these hackathons or makeathons, but they don't, no, I'm sorry, they don't, they teach assistive technology, but some of the schools don't offer the hackathon, and they don't make something for real clients. And that's what we wanted to implement. So we did, with our first sponsorship at Tufts, and Olin participated, and we had a hackathon in April. And we now are pleased to announce in January, we expect to launch 2 new programs, and one of them is at IHP. So the people are still, we're still figuring out who's going to be involved and run it, but they are going to run it, I think January, and we're also looking at Washington University in St. Louis. So our third milestone is a tough one, but we thought it was well worth having, and we're looking at setting up similar programs to one of them. Oh, I'm sorry, to one offered by IHP, where disabled patients can get free services. I take advantage of that with their PT year round, and a physical therapist paired with, 2 student therapists treat me and provide wonderful care. Health insurance providers are cutting back to 6 weeks of treatment for a given injury, like a stroke. And all of the findings for stroke, and I'm sure many of the other illnesses, suggest the more treatment you receive, the better you'll do. And last night at dinner, I met George and Andrea, and Andrea's sister had a stroke, and she's now dead. And she was 57. And after 7 years, her medical insurance wouldn't cover any more treatment. And Andrea she just said she went downhill after that. It just was terrible. And, treatment is hope, guys, and you can't have one without the other. So, yeah. Okay, our fourth milestone is one that I'm feeling very close to. It's helping people cope with disabilities. 2 weeks ago, I visited a man in hospice care with Parkinson's. Excuse me. A friend with a stroke is taking his driver's test in August. I was at the Natick. I was at the Natick Farmers Market with a gal with an autoimmune disease that paralyzed her. I can't tell you what people will want, but we're here to listen and care and point them to the resources that can offer hope. Okay. And I contacted Catherine Hoyt, who was one of the founders of COTAD, when I knew I'd be speaking to you. And she's at Washington State University. And she was very glad to write up a message for you. And she says, "Greetings, MGH COTAD chapter. I was so excited to speak with Julie and hear that you had invited Julie to speak to your chapter this month. And I'm so proud of all the incredible work your chapter has done over the past couple of years. It warms my heart that you're taking the time and space to make sure that when we talk about inclusion, we are inclusive of disabilities. As a profession dedicated to supporting individuals to be autonomous in their lives, we help people to engage in the activities that they find the most meaningful. We can't forget that true inclusion requires constant learning, engagement, and advocacy. Julie's lived experience and perseverance is evidence to what can happen when you see a gap and you act on it. Identify your core values and make choices that align with them. When your actions align with your values, you'll always be energized and motivated. You're off to a great start, and I'm so excited for the future of OT with you in it. With joy, Catherine." Well, that's Cecropia Strong, and we've got your back. I am going to stop the screen sharing and open it up. And if anyone has any questions.
Thank you so much for talking to us today. It's really incredible to hear someone's lived experience. I think because like we talk about aphasia and we talk about stroke, but as like our professors have told us, like you've seen this when you see a stroke, you've seen one stroke. Like none of them, no one is the same, and everyone's so different. And I think it can be really, it is really helpful to see what it's like in real life. I was curious, I've specifically about your experience with the vagal nerve stimulation. I've only heard of that in reference to like working with for people who have seizure disorders. So right. The idea is sort of to like send input to your brain while you're doing the therapy, since the input might not be coming, as much input might not be coming into your brain because of the stroke. Could you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. The vagal nerve stimulator is a pacemaker, like, and it feeds into the vagus nerve. So that has 15% of its fibers send information back to the brain. So that goes on regardless of what we're doing. But the vagus nerve, but by stimulating it, what she's saying, well, what you're doing, you're, scanning your magnet to say, hey, this next half hour stuff is really good. So repeat it, come up with new channels to make it stronger. And that's effectively what it's doing with the stimulation. The nerves period don't grow back. We only have a fixed amount, and that's it. And that's one of the few tissues of the body that's like that. But there are times that you can trick the brain into thinking that it's when it's sick or ailing, as in a neuro disorder like a stroke, it will it will try and co-opt different parts of it to handle remedy to you, even though there normally wouldn't be parts that would be doing that. I'm I'm not speaking very clearly, but I think you get what I mean, don't you, Hannah?
I think I do. You're sort of saying like you can't fix if any nerves, you can't fix the nerves that have been damaged, but your brain can kind of reorganize things and
Right.
use a pathway that was traditionally wouldn't be used for something, and can like sort of figure out how to like get around it. Is I think what you were saying. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's really I never
that was it.
No, I think I definitely understood what you were saying.
I had a question. You touched a little bit on this, but as OT students and as future OTs, what would you say is the best thing we could do to help advocate for people with disabilities?
Yeah, that's actually a good question, Rachel, and I wanted to mention it, and I'm glad you did. We can. I think we actually. This is something that Catherine and I were kicking around. We were talking about this for Washington University. She was telling me about how they mentor, and they have faculty members that mentor the cohorts, and that's wonderful. And I asked, well, don't you have mentors that are disabled people? And she goes, no. And she thought about it. She was, why not? And I said, yeah, why not have a mentor to several students that, can tell them what they're living and doing day to day. And it could be someone that just has gotten out of Spalding, or it could be someone that's been, injured for a few years, or 5 years, 10 years. It doesn't matter. The disabilities are real, and you only see like a little vignette in your office visit, and you can see so much more by spending any time at all with them. One more thing we have to bring on, right?
No, I think that's really helpful to hear, and like a great idea, because I mean, obviously it's more helpful to hear it from people that have the experience. I guess I'm curious, it seems like you've gotten like these kind of research studies that you've participated in. Have you noticed, I guess, within yourself or like other survivors that you've talked to, it seems like there might be a gap between like where traditional OT ends and then this area where there's still room for progress, where you've gotten a lot of help from kind of this assistive tech?
Yeah.
But that might not be part of traditional therapy.
Yeah. I don't look at me and expect to see traditional therapy. I'll bend any rule or break it if it has any benefit for me whatsoever. And if I followed traditional therapy, I would be, after 6 sessions, I would stop everything, and I would still be in a wheelchair. I would have a claw hand. I would have an OT. What do they call those knee braces? The ankle brace that goes up to the knee, and that's what everyone with a stroke wears. And I'm out of it because, I can't say I'm out of it. I am out of it, but I didn't do this. We did it. And it took a lot of therapy guys helping me, to figure out what everything was that I needed to do to get beyond being a paraplegic. It was awful. I hated it. Yeah. So was there a question in there? I'm sorry.
You're good. I guess I was just curious if it seems like you've had to advocate a lot for yourself and like seek out a lot of these opportunities doing all these research studies.
Yeah, yeah, you do.
So I guess I wonder, yeah, I guess I'm wondering now, like how many other people are in similar situations where they've kind of finished inpatient rehab, gone to outpatient therapy, and maybe have a lot of more room for progress, but like are plateauing with like what within the confines of like what traditional outpatient therapy has.
Yeah, if you follow traditional outpatient therapy, you will be an outpatient. You'll be a traditional stroke survivor, which means you're going to plateau. I haven't, and I've been climbing. I've been climbing. Okay, a little bit. It's very, very slow progress, but I'm continually climbing. And that's because I'm not listening to insurance companies. I'm not hearing them say, I just don't listen when they say, no, you're going to plateau, so we're not going to pay for anything. I figured out IHP is willing to, give the therapy. I'll take it. Now, anybody that wants, so if there's a study that people are interested in, or if you have a patient that's interested in it, this is probably what I should be saying. You can contact me and let me know where they are, what city, like Boston, they're in the Boston area, and what problem they have. So if they have stroke, you can go to the website, Cecropia Strong org now, and you can look at the six studies that we've started with, and the stroke patients, those will be good for the stroke patients. We'll have Parkinson's up in September. I think maybe we'll have vision impairment after that. And we'll work by the where the people are that are coming to us and contacting us, Cecropia Strong, and we'll get that up there as soon as we can. So yeah, so I've learned what, yeah. We'll get that stuff for you.
Thank you. That's awesome. Yeah, it just sounds like there's a lot of like self-advocacy that you've had to do, and I assume many others have.
Right. It's there. But you've got to, because if you don't, no one will, So I actually had a wonderful OT with Sue Fazoli, and she went through more stuff to help me, and that's great because I've learned from watching her, and so now I'm doing it for everybody else or anybody else. Yeah.
How are people sort of get connected with your organization? Is it through those gifts at Spalding, or is it kind of a variety of ways?
Yeah, it's whatever way I can think of. So if they're newly disabled, they get us through Spalding. If they know someone that's disabled, they've come into contact with me in any way, shape, or form, I'm here. I'll give them a card. And the card talks about Cecropia Strong, and it actually lists the website that's on the bottom. And on the back, it talks about, people with disabilities, and we want to help them. And so we have, I think, 500 of these postcards made up, and we just give out like crazy. So these will get to a lot of people. That's what we're trying to do. And we're using social media as well. That's my next thing I'll tackle. Yeah, but we want word to get out, because, you know, it's hard. It's hard to be disabled and be on your own. And it's impossible, if you are, to do some of the things you need to do. So we'll listen and we'll help, and we can suggest. I'm not saying we can do everything, but you know, we can do a whole lot more than we've done. Yeah, and it's not just the disabled. You guys are part of it. You help too.
I imagine any practitioner that has interacted with you now then is aware of your organization and then can direct people to your organization as well. And a role for us to help, not necessarily like advocate for our patients, but also help our patients advocate for themselves. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's right. You know, so you can explain, but you can teach by rote, you know, by doing, by learning, and you can help them and then talk to them about, you know, helping themselves. And, you know, here are some choices for what you can do. Here's Cecropia Strong, you know, Julie's people can, you know, connect you with lots of other stuff. Or we are working with these guys and they can do this sort of thing. It's an OT has you're miracle workers, you know, people come to you and they want your help, and it's good.
Well,
Okay,
thank you so much, Julie.
you're not miracle workers yet, but
Yeah,
you
I
will be
think-
when you get your degree.
I hope so. We're gonna definitely keep spreading the word about your organization, and I know I'll tell people I know, and we'll spread it around the IHP. But we just wanted to thank you so much for giving this presentation. It was really a great insight into your life, and yeah, if anyone here can finish the survey, it just takes like 1 minute. Jordan posted in the chat. That would be great. It helps us, helps COTAD. So thank you so much, Julie. We really appreciate it and look forward to keeping in contact in any way.
No problem, guys. Thank you very much.